All right, so we back. Take two. Y'all, let me tell you something. I'm in such a good mood, and I'm so grateful for it because I have seen today a real opportunity for me to grab hold to my peace and not let it go. Let me tell you something. If we are not intentional, and I didn't come here to preach, okay? But I will say this. If we are not intentional with maintaining our peace, and Mina knows this because she and I are in a group chat, and I said this to the group today, that my message from Holy Spirit has been expand your peace. Because there are so many opportunities. You think about it. Today may have not been your day where your peace was being challenged. However, if we do not set the intention at the beginning of the day that peace is going to be your portion, oh honey, trust me, you will get you some opportunities. You will get you some opportunities to have it snatched. But mine can't be snatched. It can't be taken. All right. So, Dr. Grant, I do not see you, but let me know if you can see Dr. Grant. You can see me, you think? Well, you would know if you see me or not. Dr. Grant, can you hear me? Because I can't hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
I'm sending a request via my tablet too.
Okay. Yeah, it's I don't see you. I just see like a black background and a white circle swirling.
So I don't know, did you receive the second request for my tablet too, or no?
I did see your request, but let me see. I'm going to remove this and let's try something else. See if this helps. Says, is she on both devices? Maybe just use one. Okay, now this is working.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that, Rose. I don't know what may have happened differently. That's never happened before. I didn't see your request, but let me see. I'm going to remove this.
Oh, you see me doing that?
And I can see you now.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to
Okay.
exit out of my phone. Maybe it's just my phone being twitchy. Okay, so.
Okay, they can see you now. Okay, yes, so we have video.
Okay, so I believe in the backups, as you well know.
You know, so, in the used car lot, the things that be standing out there doing like that, that's what I was doing.
Oh, you are so funny. So I'm going to make a few adjustments here on my tablet.
Yeah, see, we came against that Teddy Riley first versus Spirit, and then now here we are.
Yes, we are. Well, you know me. I believe in the redundancy like crazy. Like I have the tablet, I have the phone.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here. You know, I really do thank you for stepping up and coming in. So, y'all, I already had planned for Dr. Grant to come and share with us. She was our guest scheduled for Friday, June 26th. Oh, look at this. You can, I'm getting a little distracted. You can put filters on while you're on here. But when our guest today needed to reschedule, I was able to have that guest, have Alicia come on the 26th, and Dr. Grant come tonight. And the reason this worked out so perfectly is because you both are committed to study around the mind. Oh, yeah. And it's so appropriate, excuse me, y'all, so appropriate for us to have these conversations now. And not, as I said earlier, not just because it's mental health month. We know a lot of folks are doing stuff like that. One of the reasons that this page is called Wisdom for Well-Being is because we want to focus on our overall well-being, understanding that the things that we're doing with our body are not just about our body alone, but all parts of us are impacted. I like to think of well-being as spirit, soul, mind, body in that order. And tonight we're focusing on the mind. So we're going to get into it. I have a question for you and for the wise, well women who are here. So you're going to answer this question. And everybody else, I want you to put your comment in the chat here. And also, if you have a question for us, you can put your question there. You can also click on the little question box, and I think somehow it pulls your question up so it doesn't get hidden in things. So here's the question for everybody tonight, and that is, what is a strength that you saw in yourself this week?
Ooh. I would have to say it would be summarized in one word: resiliency.
How so? What about y'all?
Well, the reason why I say resiliency is I have, as you well know, and you were on my show, How to Stay Healthy During Quarantine. And usually everything goes pretty swimmingly well, but it is like your show, it is a live show. So that's the only thing. It's usually on Facebook. And that's the thing with live, as we all well know, live brings character building experiences. So the live show consists, it's on 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday is motivational. Wednesday, I go through cooking, and I actually am live, like showing you recipes and how to cook healthier. And then on Fridays, the fitness segment. So Monday's segment went fine. Wednesday's segment, however, was character building, a recipe that I had used probably a dozen times. I wanted to make and demonstrate to people how to make 2-ingredient crepe burrito, just using eggs and cream cheese. And then you can just adjust it with the fillings however you want, okay? This recipe has been made, I probably say I've made it a dozen times with no problem. This time, and it's still up. It's still up if you want to just get a good chuckle. So it's live. I'm cooking the crepe burrito. I pour the eggs in the pan. And once again, I neglect to say that this is live. And I go to pull the crepe out of the pan, and it was completely charred. And to top it off with being charred, it would not get out of the pan. It completely broke apart. So I'm supposed to be presenting you guys during that cooking segment a beautiful crepe burrito. And
that you have made so many times.
That I've made so many times, flawlessly, with children around and everything. And this time it just was completely decimated in the pan.
That's amazing.
Live.
Oh my God. Let me look at some of these. Okay, so Rose, who's the face behind Focus Health Collective, so looking forward to having her on in June. She said that she has been able to pivot quickly. I feel like that is a theme. Pivot quickly. She was able to pivot quickly at work to deliver a project. She said, yes, character building experiences. Maisha said, pulling back the franticness in the midst of a bit of an overwhelming week. Back to peace faster than in the past. See that right there. I'm telling you. So, yeah, if we didn't hear from you yet to respond, if you're just coming in, the question is around, what is a strength that you saw in yourself this week, you know? Like, we can do a much better job of celebrating ourselves, not just for the usual accomplishments. We know this is graduation season. There are people who are completing different types of programs. There are people who are getting married this month, even in the midst of this, and all kind of other things. There's always, you know, a baby that's going to be coming or something. So yeah, we congratulate folks on those things. But making it through at the end, like being able to be in a place of peace, being able to change, being able to be on live television with a blackened crepe and still finish the show, you know, like that's also worth celebrating. Linda said that beginning to think critically and question experts. Yeah, that's good. Not just taking, you know, what you're saying. See, that's the heart of wisdom for well-being too. That's one of the parts. If I were to have some pillars, which maybe I should develop now that I'm, you know, hearing these things, it is around being able to think for yourself, like to hear from the experts and then apply wisdom for that. What is the spirit saying about this stuff? So we have that working together. One of the things that we're going to start to get into now, and you guys keep this going in terms of like sharing in the chat here. Hi, Sean, the sunshine. One of the things I want us to get into now is thinking about how we see ourselves, the relationship that we have to our physical bodies and the food that we put in those bodies. That's what we're going to be getting into. Right now, you kind of may be wondering, like, so, like, what do you mean exactly? So let's just kind of start with this. So, Dr. Grant, you're not just any psychologist, but you have made it a focus of your career to study our behaviors around food. And I remember when I first met you, you told me that your professors were saying to you, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Of all things, like there's not a lot of study around it, not a lot of people looking at that. Why are you so curious about what people think about food? And what does it even have to do with anything? So why did you decide to pursue this super niche area of psychology in the first place?
I pursued it for two reasons. First, my own personal experience with the healing effects of giving your body the right nutrients in order to really thrive. That's number one. And number two is because I lost my third family member, my mom, to food addiction back in 2016. And the thing is that when you're going through something like that, you don't know that it's food addiction. Food addiction itself, which is my specialty area, is relatively new. And food addiction, just to give you a brief summary of what that is, includes symptoms of overeating, food cravings, food binges, emotional eating. And during this time, while we are in quarantine and isolation due to the corona pandemic, a lot of people are falling on either one side of the fence or the other. One side of the fence is, you know what, I'm really not overeating as much anymore because I don't have access to my favorite restaurants. And the other side of the fence is, I'm going bonkers over here and I've eaten everything in my pantry because the food is there. But the reason why I went into food addiction, and specifically that area of psychology, using social cognitive theory, a special leg of psychology to help people overcome and control it, is because when I lost my mother to food addiction in 2016, you have to understand here, she was so large at that time that we couldn't find a coffin to bury her in when she passed. We were not sure we were going to be able to have the funeral because she was that large. So we had to custom order a coffin. And then after having the funeral, like they almost dropped her at the cemetery while they were delivering and putting the coffin in the ground. And after everything happened, and I see Sean, she's saying, dear God, yeah, and Focus is saying, wow. So you're imagining all this happening, you're dealing with the death of your loved one, and then top it off, you see the men, it took like over 8 men to carry her body in the casket at the cemetery. And with 8 strong men, they almost dropped my mom at the cemetery. Okay. Now, here's the thing though. After all the dust settled and we all kind of started kind of calming down after everything, and I'm going through her things, which of course is just something you have to do in her home. And I'm in her bedroom and I'm pulling through her dresser drawers, and I open the first dresser drawer at the bottom and it's so heavy I can't even pull. So I'm like yanking and pulling and I could barely get this thing open. And Sean, you're right, that was hard. And when I couldn't get it open, when I did, I saw all these books, and they're all books about nothing but diet, how to lose weight, how to eat better, how to lose weight in 20 pounds in a short amount of time. Then I opened the second bedroom dresser drawer, and it's a little bit lighter than the first one, but still heavy. And that's another dresser drawer filled with magazines. And they're dating all the way back to like the 1970s. This is before I was born, in the early 70s, not to put my age out there. So my mother, people assume that people that are overweight and morbidly obese, people assume that they've made no effort whatsoever to lose weight.
Dr. Grant,
no.
Dr. Grant, did you know before, she got to that condition, did you know that she was different? That maybe it was an addiction? Like, did you have any thinking around that? Was anybody in the family? Because, it's kind of hard. And I'm interested to know from anybody who's on tonight, if there is anybody in your life or has been somebody in your life that was morbidly obese or just maybe at an unhealthy weight for their height, or you suspected, something might be going on that could be associated with their weight. Have you said something to them? And if not, why? Have other people said something? Because it can be a hard thing to say something or to even know what to say. And I can tell you, when I was 246, almost 250, nobody was saying anything to me about my weight except for one person.
Okay.
And it wasn't like that she said something directly about the weight, but she would give me resources to encourage me around weight. So I was just curious to know if anybody in your family was saying anything, or were you, I know this is kind of hard to hear, do you think people were enabling her?
Good questions. Real good questions, Queuing. And the answer to both of those questions is yes, to a degree. Yes. Enabling, yes. And here's the reason why. I say it with a caveat. Enabling comes disguised, you see, in two different areas. Enabling, we naturally as human beings will find people that we gravitate towards that will tell us what we want to hear. A good example of this is, like you asked, did anyone say anything to my mother? The answer is yes. As a matter of fact, my mother, and here's the painful thing, she did lose the weight at one point in time. When I was in my teens, she went to, at that time, before Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers became popular, there was a salon by our house that was a weight loss salon. And she had lost, I think she lost 40 or 60 pounds. Okay, so this showed me actually that you can lose the weight. But then she had 3 marriages, stress at her job. She single parent raising me. I'm an only child. And then the weight started creeping back up again. Who can relate? Life just happened. And you don't have to be married enough. Life.
Let me just read a couple of comments. Maisha said, this is a touchy subject, and you know that the person sees themselves, so whatever you say is not a news flash. Shani said, I don't want to put that on them. There's a lady at my church that told me, oh my God, this irritated me to see. This lady at my church told me that I was too pretty to be that big. I was 14. You never forget something like that. Side note, there's one of the wise well women said this week that two different people in this week. Now imagine what this does to a person's thinking. Two different occasions this week, one on Tuesday, one today, where someone asked her if she was expecting. What is wrong with people? But anyway, Maisha said, when you like to eat yourself, that's when you really have to watch the enabling via your own eating. That's true, especially if you're around the person too. If you're just coming in, we're talking with Dr. Kirsten Grant about the psychology of body image and the psychology around food and how we approach food. And you've been sharing with us this story. And girl, I'm like, this blows my mind as you begin to tell the story about the men carrying your mom and how they almost dropped her.
Yeah.
This is already trauma on top of seeing a person leave so soon. So
Yeah.
I have a question for you, and you can probably draw on your experience with your mom with this, but do you think that there are certain people that are prone to food addiction? Are there certain personalities? Like, where does it come from? Like, does it affect some people and maybe not others? Or what things might happen in a person's life that causes this? Like, where does it even come from?
Yes. And queuing, you raise a really good point and a good question. The answer to your question is yes. Here's the weird thing about food addiction and the symptoms when you're overeating, you're binging, you're giving into food cravings, okay? People don't believe that food addiction exists because the pushback and the argument that I get in these discussions is, well, you need food to live. How can you be addicted to food? And most people will push back and say, well, you just need more willpower. I used to believe that. When my mother lost that weight, when she went to that salon in my teens, and I saw she could do it, I thought for the longest time I was so upset because I saw how unhappy she was throughout her life as the weight piled on. She lost like almost 60 pounds, and then she gained that back and more. And I saw how it influenced her decisions, from her career choices to the type of car that she drove, to how she interacted with her boss, to the clothing that she wore, to her relationships and her mate selection, to her finances, everything. So this is the reason why I'm so passionate about it. It's more than just a dress size. It's more than just, it's so much deeper than that. Now back to your original question, so far as is there a vulnerability? The answer is yes. And this is why I went deeper into this and dedicated my life to studying this and the brain once I began to realize that, oh, this is about more than willpower. It's about more than information. My mother had 3 dresser drawers completely chock full, ranging back from the 1970s, before I was born, filled with information about how to lose weight, the latest diet. So if it were a matter of just reading just the right book, just the right article, and flipping a switch and doing the math on the calories, we all would be at our goal weight. So there's clearly something more.
Right.
So to directly answer your question, for those of you guys that are wondering out there, clinical studies have shown, and I didn't believe myself until I saw the brain scans, but food addiction is actually real. It is more prevalent in people that are overweight and obese. You're more vulnerable to its effects, so far as how your brain responds and reacts to foods that have certain food additives in them that are designed to stimulate the brain and stimulate you to overeat, and also stimulate your body signals where you can't feel and sense that you are full. And the chemicals involved in that are leptin and ghrelin.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I say this back. You're saying that vulnerable populations, which would be people who are overweight or obese,
Hmm.
their brains
Yeah.
can be triggered, I guess, by certain food additives.
Yes. When
Like what?
compared, as compared to a normal weight person in clinical studies.
Wow. And so then first we got to know what those additives are. And these things are legal, I guess,
They're
clearly.
legal. They're legal. Hmm. It's MSG.
Well, huh?
It's MSG, known as monosodium glutamate, and high fructose corn syrup.
You don't hear about MSG as much as you used to.
No, not anymore.
At least I
Not really.
don't. But they
Yeah,
probably got a new name for it.
they do.
Isn't this something? Because what I'm thinking about right now, and if you're just coming in, we're talking with Dr. Kirsten Grant, who's done just extensive study around the way we see ourselves and the way we relate to food. And she just shared with us that there are things that can be added to food that trigger in some people, particularly people who are overweight and obese. And I got to find out why that is. Um, that would lead them into food addiction. And the thing that concerns me so much about this right now, as a teacher and advocate for young people, is that we're probably exposing children younger and younger, perhaps even babies, to some of these triggers. Vibrant Life Nutrition just said, sadly, the FDA approves these additives. It's so interesting. I remember this one time, just quick sidetrack here. I was at the gas station and I was going to get a 5-hour energy, one of those energy shots. And the guy was getting ready to ring me up. And he looked and he was looking at me so disapprovingly, and I know it's not the best choice. I felt like I needed this thing this morning. It was like almost 5 in the morning. I had a workout to get in. I'm like, I need something. And he said, this is banned in my country. That's what
Mm.
he said.
Oh,
And I
wow.
thought, wow, because we're so used to this stuff. That was nothing to me. But he
Mm-hmm.
said that this was illegal where he's
Mm.
from.
Mm.
So I just thought of that when Vibrant Life Nutrition said the FDA approves these additives. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it just makes me think like, wow, these things are sanctioned.
They are, and they are, you're correct, Hewing. In some countries, I forget which countries they are, some countries do ban them. They will not allow them to be added to foods.
Hmm. So I have another question about this. The people who, you said that people who are overweight or obese,
Right.
it could trigger something in them. Why is that as compared to like someone who's maybe never struggled with their weight? Why is this going to be something that's triggered in me versus that's triggered in maybe another one of the sisters on here who
Mhm.
hasn't, you know, who's been at a relatively normal weight?
It has to do with the pleasure receptors in the brain. And people that
Mhm.
are overweight, according to clinical studies, and obese, they have certain pleasure receptors that are basically they respond more, almost like when you compare like a brain scan side by side of someone's response that is more vulnerable to those effects, even like sugar, for example, that's overweight or obese, and you would put a brain that is someone that is a normal weight, and you would
Mhm.
look at under MRI scan how those brains light up and activate, and then you were to take basically a drug addict's brain, the drug addict's brain and the brain of the person that's overweight, obese, when they consume certain foods, like even sugar and foods that contain MSG and high fructose corn syrup, the regions of the brain light up almost at the same level and intensity when you compare it to the brain over here of the person that's just a normal weight. Their brains, they respond, but they don't light up as bright, and the area of the brain doesn't light up. The larger areas of the brain do not light up in this normal weight person. And you're right, Queuing, it can even start from birth or even in the womb, because certain ingredients in studies have been shown to cross over into the womb and even through breast milk.
Wow.
And that's something I was really surprised about, because I was thinking, I have 2 children, and there was this particular food that I liked, a particular salad dressing that I liked that had MSG in it, and I didn't know, because I cleared out everything from my pantry that has MSG.
You eat pretty clean.
I try.
Yeah.
But I'm really vicious about that. And when I was pregnant, that was the last frontier. It was this ranch dressing. And I'm thinking, when I was pregnant, I would eat salad a lot, you know, and I would just have the ranch dressing. It was just going to be me and ranch dressing hanging tight, you know, for 9 months. And I found out that this ranch dressing, which is my favorite, which they finally removed it, thank goodness. But at that time, they had MSG in it. And then I found out the other flip side of this, just to give you a laugh, there are not a lot of ranch dressings that taste really good like that ranch dressing. So when I went to go experiment and find other ranch dressings, thinking this would be easy, and there are a lot of ranch dressings that taste horrible. But the bright side is I learned how to make ranch dressing from scratch, which is a lot easier than you think, and it tastes just like that one. So
it's something. Rose also said, wow. Maisha said it's about the money. Because I'm thinking about the fact that women unknowingly, we're going out here trying to, you know, do the best we can day by day. And we could even be exposing our children to sugar addictions. And I know there's a sister on here who recently did a live about sugar addictions and how much sugar we consume in a year. And I'm hearing you say that from what do they call, you know, from a lap baby or whatever, that kids could even be becoming addicted to sugar. And it's interesting that it's not being taken that seriously. It's almost like it's not seen as a real addiction, like you said, because it's kind of like, well, it's here. So, you know, I have a question around emotional eating now, because a lot of times when most people think about emotional eating, they think about a person eating a whole pizza or sitting up with a tub of ice cream or something like that. But I heard you say that that's kind of like the image that people think of, but that's not really an accurate picture of what emotional eating is.
it's not totally an accurate picture. I mean, some of that is sensationalized. So you're thinking emotional eating, a person sitting down with a tub or 2 or 3 of Ben and Jerry's ice cream or something and going bonkers with it, you know? But emotional eating, it really, we eat with our emotions. Let's think about this seriously. The true definition of emotional eating, when you look at it more closely and examine it more closely, we are based by our emotions. We are run by our emotions. So you're eating when you're happy. You're eating when you're sad. We are trained to eat in a celebratory fashion. You make a huge accomplishment, you are happy, you eat. A perfect example of emotional eating is that love weight, that newlywed weight gain. You know, when you're sitting up there, you're at your fighting weight prior to getting married, you fall in love, or even if you don't get married, you fall in love. Next thing you know, you look up, you've gained 15 pounds because you're happy. And therefore, that's where that happy weight term comes from.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that emotional eating is just any eating that's been inspired by this life change of that.
Yeah.
How would a person know that they have an eating disorder that might require clinical attention? Because I know that you do some coaching and there's, you know, other people that we have come across. Emily Quisenberry is somebody that I respect, and also Kiera of Curves and Cupcakes. These are people that I follow who are doing some coaching around food freedom.
Yeah.
But how can we distinguish if there is a clinical issue here as it relates to food addiction or disordered eating versus we just need some guidance and some tools around it? Like, what do you think would be some indicators to help a person know that there might be something deeper versus let me just walk you through this?
There's a spectrum, and that's the
Mhm.
reason why I talk about and say food addiction and food addiction symptoms, because you can
Okay.
you can have full-blown food addiction, and food addiction, it stems from like binge eating disorder, for example. So food addiction, full-blown food addiction, what that looks like, where you say, oh my goodness, I need some definite help. Food addiction
Hmm.
is where you're acting like what's characterized by, the traditional films of like a drug addict. It's just with food. So you're getting up maybe in the middle of the night and you are eating not just one or two cookies, you're eating the whole tray of cookies. You're going
Hmm.
out of your way, for example, to get your fix of whatever food it is that you happen to want to eat. You are waiting and isolating yourself from friends and family. And for example, one lady that I had as a client, she would wait until her family went to sleep and she would
Hmm.
open up the refrigerator and she would binge at night to the point that she was in physical pain when she
Wow.
woke up that morning and felt so badly. When you're having really negative, painful effects where it is stumbling upon and interfering with your ability to function in your daily life because of your obsession with
Hmm.
food. That's full blown food addiction. But I didn't
I
wish to
know
limit.
for a fact,
Yeah.
I know for a fact based on what you said, and I'm not ashamed to say it because it's part of my testimony. I know for a fact then that I was addicted to food in the same way that someone would be addicted to heroin or pornography or whatever it is. Because I can think of times where I had bought like, I remember I bought some cookies one time and like I don't mean from the bakery where you say, I'd like to get 2 chocolate chip cookies. No, I don't mean that. I mean a pack of cookies. And we may have to restart this, guys, because I see we're coming up on an hour, and I know we had some stuff to work out at the beginning. So I'm just saying that in case this runs out. So I buy this pack of cookies, a pack of cookies. So however many cookies are in a pack, let's say what, 12, 24. And I would feel like I don't want to do this. It's like an awareness of I don't want to do this, but I can't not do this. Like when people laugh and stuff when they're watching 600-Pound Life, that's not funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
I, if not for the grace of God, I would have been one of them.
Okay.
I believe that. Like there's no reason why I wouldn't have been. Had not it been for divine interference, I would be on 600-Pound Life, not in a jokey way, but in a real, I
I,
hope Dr. Now will take me as a client way. So anyway, I got this pack of cookies and I don't, I'm like halfway through it now. And I know I can't, this is bad because I feel bad. I'm bad because I'm eating all this. I'm bad because I can't not do this. So I put the cookies, like I put them in a bag and I, bunny ear the bag and put it all tight and I put it in my garbage can.
mm-hmm.
And I would like to say that that was the end of the story, but it wasn't.
Right. Right.
And it reminds me, I remember in college when my friends and I, we would smoke cigarettes. Um, like we thought it, because we're grown and we're cool. I don't even think we were smoking the cigarettes right. But I remember buying a pack of cigarettes one time because I didn't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. So we were like, get them and then put them in the trash. And the next thing you know, we're like, okay, this is the last one, then we do it again. But I went back into the garbage like a raccoon and got those cookies out of the garbage and ate them. And I think that it was in that moment of knowing that I am this smart, brilliant, beautiful woman. I am eating out of the garbage. I'm
Mm-hmm.
eating these cookies out of the garbage. And I think that's when I realized that something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I met you
Mm-hmm.
that I realized this is a real thing.
Yeah.
This is a real thing. Um, I want to read a couple of things here.
Yeah, I see you've
Um,
got some really interesting comments.
yeah, she says, Vibrant Life said, me too. I'm not ashamed to say that I would hide honey buns in my nightstand. Food sugar addiction is real.
Mm-hmm.
Did the same thing with Oreo cookies when I was 11. Miranda from Sex and the City did that too. Do you remember that cake? Yeah, it's real.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So, and I wanted you to be here tonight because I think this is one of those things that who's going to be saying this? Who's going to want to say, I'm eating out of the garbage? Now, everybody ain't, out here like a raccoon eating out of the garbage. Um, but the feeling that you can't not do it, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It's so hard to
Yeah,
describe.
it is hard to describe if you haven't really been through it. So that's why I say
Mhm,
that's food addiction on this end. On the other hand, and when I say food addiction symptoms, because what I'm sharing with people, it crosses over, and you can use this even if you're not food addicted, like you're saying, like a raccoon eating out of your garbage can. My tips and everything that I share with people, you can still use it if you just simply want to reduce the episodes of you overeating and food cravings and the binging.
mhm.
Even if you're not full blown food addiction, there's a scale that a
Okay.
psychologist created, um, called the Yale Food Addiction Scale. And it
Yale.
actually, Yale Food Addiction Scale.
Okay.
Uh, it, it's by Dr. Ashley Gearhart. And that is what I use for my clinical study to officially, educate people on your level and strength of food addiction. So far as, is it super strong, or is it that you just got some really compelling symptoms that are making your life difficult, and we can
Mhm.
still work with that, you
So let's
know?
talk about that then. So,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that you said that people who are overweight or obese, their brain responds differently to sugar and different additives
Mm-hmm.
that would lead them into further addiction and binging and stuff like that. What are
Yes.
some of the things that, like, before it got there? So when you think about a child that
Mm-hmm.
is, I'm a teacher and we have children in kindergarten that are already obese. They're already over 100 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some of the things that maybe have led up? Like, what are some of the things you've seen in your practice that have led people who were, I don't want to say normal, but
Yeah.
they weren't presenting any symptoms? What are some of the things that lead a person into food addiction?
Usually, and I'm vastly condensing it down in the interest of time, of course, but it's
Mhm.
usually number one, your life experience where you're around food and food is used as a reward, and it's used as a coping mechanism. That's number one. And
Like,
it
for
becomes,
example?
for example, I had one lady that I chatted with, and we're still chatting back and forth, where essentially she came from a relationship with her mother where her mother was abandoned. The husband left at a young age, and therefore she was relied upon by her family members and her siblings to be kind of the cornerstone, the rock. And of course, that stressed her out at age 7. Now, she fast forward,
Mm.
she's like, in her 40s now, but, you know, it's still she felt like in order to regain some level of pleasure, some kind of control, after she has completely exhausted herself, she turned to food because that was the only thing that was pleasant and pleasurable and really came with no strings attached. And it
Mm-hmm.
started from that early age. So that is one example of what I mean by using food as a coping mechanism. The other example I can give you, based on experience I've had with past clients and also ladies I've worked with and chatted with, is when they're at a young age in their teens. And it's just a way of life for them. Everyone in their family is overweight and obese. And
Mm-hmm.
they had a poor relationship with food because no one instructed or taught them how to look at food as a form of fuel and appreciate the taste of food, okay? But to
Mm-hmm.
still value yourself and your body and your health and your ability to do the things that you want to do, even at the young, tender age of like 14, like my client that I was talking to still value that over gorging yourself over food.
Mm.
Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Um, are there any questions from our audience? If you have a question for Dr. Grant around relationships to food, food addiction, emotional disorder, emotionally driven eating, disordered eating is what I'm hearing it called. Go ahead and put that in there, and we will take your questions. I don't see it winding down on us yet, so we might make it out unless we have some other questions, and we will bring it back up. Um, I did have something that I was interested in seeing if you have any insight on this.
Okay.
The demographics for this page for Wisdom for Well-Beings are millennials and Gen Xers.
Okay.
So I was curious to know, are there any um, things like as we think about our generations, is one generation struggling with this more so than the other? And if we're kind of all in this thing together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Essentially, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Statistically, I did some digging prior to our chat because I wanted to present you with factual, scientifically proven
Mm-hmm.
information. And if it's ever just simply my experience or my opinion, I'll always say that. But there's no difference across generation, age,
Mm-hmm.
race, so far as symptoms of food addiction or even just binge eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia. What
Mm-hmm.
is interesting, however, when you look at anorexia and bulimia, just in general, that's fueled by the need to be thin. Whereas binge eating disorder, which is where food addiction actually kind of falls into,
Mm-hmm.
binge eating disorder is not fueled by being thin. Instead, it's just really fueled by that feeling of wanting to be full. And here's the other thing, too, I want to bring up because a lot of people think, and I just had a most interesting conversation with someone via chat like about a week ago because the person contacted me and said, you're talking about food addiction, and I like what you're saying, but I'm not fat. Like I was speaking to her directly, and I'm like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
say that you were. I'm just educating people on food addiction here. But I want
Yeah.
to, you do bring up a really important point that I want to bring up here. Everyone that suffers from food addiction or food addiction symptoms like overeating and binge eating, people assume that these people are what's called fat. The reality is they're not. If you suffer from binge eating disorder, a person, you can look at them and they can appear normal or what is defined as normal and still
Mm-hmm.
suffer from binge eating disorder. It doesn't mean that when you have binging disorder, basically not all people that have binge eating disorders or food addiction are obese. And
Right.
all people that are obese don't have binge eating disorder or food addiction. That's a very important point that I want to drive home
Mm-hmm.
for people in case that ever surfaces or pops up.
Yeah, it's so important to point that out because there's so many assumptions made about a person's health and their relationship to food based on what they look like. I did a post this week that said, not everyone who is smiling is happy, and not everybody who is skinny is healthy. A couple of things here. Nevada said, I just want to let you know that this conversation has inspired me to do a workout that I was procrastinating on. Carolyn has a question here. She said, what is a good way to combat urges, especially when someone brings a particular food up? Then it's in your spirit until you have it. Happened to me the other day.
Okay, that's a really fine question. And here is your condensed answer to the best of my ability. We have to get to the root of it. It is not about calorie counting, it is about reprogramming your brain and giving you the tools to do that. It starts with yourself. Let's take a look at what's your trigger. What is your major trigger? And it's different for everybody, but is it when your environment is stressing you out, be it your home or your external environment so far as work? Is it your relationship when it's stressing you out? Which items in your life, your spirituality, or whatever you define that as during this chat that we're here, or for people that catch this on the replay, everyone's level of what makes them feel balanced and whole is different. But when that equilibrium is knocked out of homeostasis, that's when you're more vulnerable to being triggered. That's step one, knowing what is the thing that throws you off. Like some people, for example, and I talk about this all the time because clutter is a thing that drives me bonkers. And I have 2 children, so don't ask me how that works out. But clutter drives me bonkers, okay? That throws off my equilibrium. So I'll know, all right, if I'm having with a super clutter day, then I might need to circle the wagons if I know I'm going and dealing with some place that might have food that's extremely tempting for me. I'm not going to have the mental resolve to handle that. And that clutter is just my thing. But for you queuing, it might be something else. It could be that if work is really stressing you out. I see Diane the foodie joined us. Diane, I don't know what your trigger is. Feel free to type it in the chat. But let's say hypothetically that Diane, your trigger is your relationship with your family. Let's say that you had a disagreement with a friend or a family member that day. So your world has been rocked. And therefore you now feel very vulnerable. That's step one. Identify what your trigger is. That's step one. Step two is identify and ask yourself when you're having these thoughts that you're going to eat the food. Step two is to question yourself and ask, why am I having this thought? What happened today that's making me want to give in today? Seriously ask yourself right then and right there. And here's step three that you need to look out for. And this is extremely important for people that binge and give into food cravings. And I keep saying that and driving that point home because it's so important to understand this. People expect when they get into any kind of program oriented towards health, fitness, weight loss, for results to happen like that.
Because that's what you see out here in these Instagram streets.
No, don't go for that. What I recommend and what I did for my clinical study, and I made it last for 4 weeks, and it was extremely effective. Now my program is long because I just want to give people longer, but what I recommend is you're not shooting for instantaneous success. What you're shooting for is a gradual decrease in the number of episodes that you have where you did overeat, where you did binge. So let's say, for example, queuing, here's a good example for you. That situation that you shared with us about you like being a raccoon, eating, in the garbage at that time in the past, okay?
Yeah.
All right. The goal, like if we had met and we had a time machine and we had met back then and you had text me or called me and said, oh my God, I'm looking at this bag in the garbage can. What am I going to do here? And even if you ate the thing, this is what I share with ladies that shocks them. It's cool, man. You're going to do that because you're on a long-term path here. The goal is to reduce the amount of times that you do it. So you need to wrap your mind around and truly put numbers to how often, now that you know what your trigger is and what thoughts are flowing through your head that are making you succumb, then let's go ahead and figure out what exactly is your trigger food and how often do you give into those triggers and binges. So let's say, queuing, that you had those episodes 10 times a week. When you and I started working together, for example, I'm not striving for you to get rid of all those episodes. What I'm striving for you to do is decrease it by 1 or 2 the next week. So if you tell me the following week that, okay, 10 times I had the urge, but instead I only gave in 8 times, that's
Mm-hmm.
successful. If you tell me, for
Yeah.
example, that I gave in instead of 10 times, I gave in 10 times, but instead of eating the whole bag of cookies, I ate half a bag, that's success. And you gradually step it down level by level to decrease it. That is what sets you
Mm-hmm.
up for long-term success. Because if you sit up there and try to say you want an instantaneous change, that's what throws your brain into shock and your body into shock. And seriously, it's not going to work because you're going to get angry with yourself and frustrated. And
And
then
you
that's
know
going
what's
to
so
set the cycle
interesting?
again. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
Althea, you're so right. This is awesome teaching. It's interesting because what you're saying is so contrary sometimes to our thinking. Because what we think is, if we keep to the 10 times, if I do it one time, I messed it up. I
Mm-hmm.
messed it up. Why? I used to say this, and I talk about it in my book too. I used to say things like, why can't I just get this right? Why can't I do this? Like, especially when you feel like you're being so successful, like this is a community of professional, excellent women and the men who love them. We got a couple of men watching. Um, and it's like, why can't I not do this? Yeah, Rose said, we think we got to go all in. It's like all or nothing. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's like, if I do it, if I give in, then I messed it up. Oh, well, I may as well
Right.
just start on Monday. So
Exactly.
Monday comes, I mess it up again. Oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
I guess after the holidays. And then you
Right.
look up and we don't even realize how much progress we have made and how
Exactly.
well we're doing. Like we're doing better than we think we are, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
To
Mm-hmm.
me, you know what's a mark of success for me now?
Okay.
When after I eat, I don't feel like I'm about to bust.
There you go.
To me,
There you
that's
go.
success because I have overridden my hunger and full signals, y'all. So I almost did them like you did that crepe, almost obliterated them. So the body telling you that it's full or telling you that it's hungry, um, being able to recognize that. And when I recognize it, it feels good.
Yes.
So if I have a week and 5 days out of that week, hey, Keola, if 5 days out of that week I was able to recognize when I was hungry,
Yes.
I was able to recognize when I was full,
Yes.
or I was able to have some put some respect on my plate.
Yes.
Keola, who just joined us, she did a post the other day about, and I wish I could remember exactly what she said, but she said, your food deserves your attention or
Mm.
something like
Yes.
that, she said.
Yes.
So that when you're eating, you shouldn't be doing these thousands other things. So your mind is not, your mind is somewhere else. So it's that whole thing where, whew, oh, I'm full. I don't feel like doing nothing now. I'm not finna work out. I'm not finna go to a walk. I just
Right.
want to lay here
Mm-hmm.
and roll. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So what you're saying right now, just makes me think about being more mindful.
Mm-hmm. Here's the
Yeah.
other thing I want to flag people's attention to as well. It's
Hmm.
extremely important for you to, especially now, go through your cupboards. Like after you get off with us, for those of you that are here and for those of you listening on the replay, go through your cupboards, look for foods that have the ingredient monosodium glutamate and high fructose corn syrup. That will even help you get a head start on decreasing the chances of you overeating and binging and having these food cravings. The commonly held foods that have these would be ketchup, ice cream, your prepackaged cookies, your frozen prepared meals. And it's not that you give up all taste and flavor. Like what I did for my study that I created during my doctorate degree, I, for 1 full year, went to the supermarket based on the
Hmm.
commonly consumed foods that people said were their weak spots. I went to the supermarket for 1 year, and I specifically found the foods and the brands of foods that didn't have those ingredients, and also tasted them to see if they tasted decent. Because some foods, no, they don't taste that
Hold
good.
on one second. Hold on one second, Dr. Grant. Y'all, we're going to have to come right back. This is about to end. So we'll wrap up about another 15 minutes. So be right back. Hold on.
Okay.